Are there any particular tools that you use, plants or otherwise, for writing? I imagine you still do a fair amount of writing. Is there anything that has filled that gap for you?
One is matcha green tea, and the other is coca leaf. And as you know, I'm a great fan of coca leaf, and I've worked for many years to try to rehabilitate coca, to teach people the differences between coca and cocaine. And I'm delighted to see finally, after all this time, there is some momentum building around legalizing coca, making it available.
What is that momentum, if you could speak to it? Because I've had very limited exposure to coca, but it was given to me when I suffered from altitude sickness in South America. And I mean, literally within 45 minutes, my symptoms had all but vanished. It was incredible to experience the effects firsthand. But what momentum, what changes are you seeing in the United States?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of changes in Colombia and in other countries. And in this country, too, there are groups forming, really working to legalize coca, to make it medically available, to make it available to people, to teach people the differences between coca and cocaine. One group that I've been doing some work with that you may know of is the River Styx Foundation.
I do. Cody Swift as director.
Cody Swift. And they're very interested in trying to fund coca research to document some of the medical benefits. But it's the first time in 40 some years that I've seen any change in attitudes up here. And I think it would be a great thing for people to have access to coca. It's not cocaine. It has distinct effects. It has unique medical effects. We should have access to it. Not to mention the fact that this is the sacred plant of a great many indigenous people in South America. And it has been so demonized by our society. And I think given all the momentum around looking at indigenous cultures and rights, that this also plays into this of rehabilitating the sacred leaf.
I agree with that 100%. And I want to give River Styx Foundation, Cody Swift, and his team also a nod for their work with respect to an organization called the Indigenous Peyote Conservation Initiative, IPCI.
Yeah, great.
Which purchased a tract of land in Texas, so not too far from where I live, although Texas is effectively a country. It's gigantic, so don't underestimate drive time. And it has become such a symbol of hope for so many Native American groups throughout the United States, including groups who historically would not necessarily automatically get along. It's been this unifying, sort of catalyzing project. So I want to give them a nod for that. Could you speak to and explain the Beneficial Plants Research Association?
Well, it's a research foundation that I started in 1979, way ahead of its time. We had a stellar advisory board, including Dick Schultes, Albert Hofmann, Alexander Shulgin. And I mean, there was an amazing advisory group. And the purpose of this was to look at plants that had been neglected or unrecognized that could be of great benefit up here. Starting with coca was one of the main ones, but we looked at other kinds of stimulants, kava, which at that time was relatively unknown. So the idea was to get research going on these, to teach people about them. And as I say, it was just way ahead of its time. So eventually we folded, but I'm really interested in resurrecting this. And a common interest that of Cody Swift and mine is looking at demonized plants. And my feeling has always been, a theme of my writing has been that there are no good or bad drugs. There are just good and bad relationships with drugs. And I think you can broaden that to plants as well. Coca being a prime example, we've said that is a bad plant, the source of all sorts of trouble. But the problem is how we've related to that plant, taking cocaine out of it and making that available. And I think if you look at there's a whole bunch of other plants that we consider problematic, and it's really how we've related to them that's the problem. And I think it would be interesting to try to rehabilitate some of them. Just as an example, things like ephedra and khat, opium poppies, tobacco even, that it's our misuses of these that have caused trouble. It's not the plant itself.